Welcome to my session of fundamentals of statistics and which states to apply under which situation. I'm Dr. Parag Shah and I'll take you in this session to which statistics should be used, fundamentals about statistics, also about which states to use, when it should be used, under which circumstances it should be used. So it will be a presentation about why statistics, understanding statistics is important, why it is important to know about the exact statistics you have to use it, right? And we'll also understand about the understanding the problem, understanding the data, and then selecting the appropriate descriptive statistics, appropriate graphs, and appropriate testing of hypothesis, different tests that we have. So first of all, let me explain what is data. So we all know that data is nothing else but collection of facts or information from which conclusions can be drawn. So it is not simply information, but now information, if it is converted to take a decision or to conclude something from that, that kind of information or a facts will be calling it as a data. So now we'll take types of data. There are two types of data that you all know. The data is qualitative, or which we call it as an attribute data. We also call it as a non-numeric data, which cannot be measured. Right? Example, gender, religion affiliation, state of birth, condition of the patients, words, images, and videos. Now, I'll take you this a little bit time to explain this, because up till now, what was the scenario that the data means which can be measured? We only considered the information or the characteristics which can be measured as our data, like height, weight, blood pressure, sugar level, cholesterol level. All this will be considered as a data that was not merely perceived. But we also know there are certain characteristics which cannot be measured, which are either bifurcated or divided into different groups, like religion. So we can say it is Hindu, Christian, Jain, Muslim, and so on. So there is no numbers for it. Okay, that is cannot be measured in numbers. Gender, male and female, generally male and female. State of birth, in which state you are born. Maybe Gujarat, maybe Rajasthan, maybe Tamil Nadu, maybe Kashmir, maybe Bihar. That again is a data for us. Condition of the patient, whether it is worst, it's better, it's very better, it's okay. So that kind of bifurcation also can be considered as a data. Words, now this is something important. Words. So there is a whole now branch of analysis which is only depending on the words. Either it is written words or it is verbal words. So that is also considered as a data. And the whole sentiment analysis, you might have heard about this word sentiment analysis, is based on the data. That is based on the words. So whether we call it as a politician giving a speech, and after his speech, it is done a sentiment analysis that how many positive words were used, how many negative words were used, what is the impact of that particular words. So all that are now being analyzed. Same way emojis or images also now. Emojis also and images also. They are all non-verbal communication, right? The body gesture, okay, or the facial gesture that we make, all that are called images. And that is a whole lot of data analysis branch which analyzes this data. Depending on the body language, the pictures of a person, then they can analyze that which type of person he might be, what is his personality. All that can be done as an analysis part using such kind of things. Seeing the videos, sports analytics depends hugely on videos. So which cricketer plays on say a drive better, which type of balls is having his weakness, or which footballer is using more left leg compared to that of a right leg, how many goals he has scored using the right leg, okay, how many time he possesses the ball in the field. So all that can be analyzed using the videos. So that is also considered as a data. Okay, so in a broader sense, when we say a qualitative data, it's fine, it is non-numeric, but in non-numeric now, we should also consider words, images, and videos as our qualitative data. Second, it comes, which is very familiar with us, that is a quantitative data. That is the characteristics which can be measured, which is numeric, like how much time that a runner or a sprinter takes for a 400-meter race, age of a patient, the number of WBC count, the time to recover from the COVID, okay, the number of uh, the number of visits made by the doctor. All this will be, which is quantifiable, will be said as a quantitative data. Okay, this is again simple one. Now again, in quantitative data, it can be classified into two: discrete or continuous. Now discrete means it assumes only certain values. Okay, it assumes only certain values. But there is a misconception over here. In many books also, if you see the examples about discrete variable, what you will find, like number of children, number of car per family, number of family members per family, number of two-wheelers owned by a person. But all this, if you see, that gives an impression that non or discrete variable means which is an integer value, which does not have any decimal. So that is a normal perception that we get from the examples that is given in the books and all. But that is not true. Because I've seen many a times it is perceived that where decimal is possible, it is continuous, where decimal is not possible, it is discrete. But that is not true. Okay. Discrete variable means it can assume only certain values out of a given range of values. See, for example, if I clarify this, uh, we all right now normally purchase milk in pouches, maybe Amul or whichever brand we use it. It is in pouches, and we know that a pouch is of 500 ml. It is of 500 ml, right? Okay. So when I ask you that how much quantity of milk is consumed by your family, then I may get an answer as say one pouch, maybe two pouch, maybe four pouch, maybe six pouch, depending on the number of members. So if I collect that information in terms of ml, my answer, or in terms of liters, if I be very precise, in terms of liters, I'll get my answer as 0.5 liters, 1.5 liters, 2 liters, 2.5 liters, 6 liters. Okay, so that means decimals are possible over here, and still this is a discrete data. Why it is a discrete data? Because if I take a survey of this kind for 500 families, the values of that 500 families, the consumption of milk of that 500 families will always be either 0.5 or 1 or 2 or 2.5, but it will be taking only certain amount of values. So it is called a discrete. I hope that is clear. Good. So examples, we can say number of pregnancies, number of missing teeth in the children, number of visits made by the doctor, number of goals, number of centuries, number of wickets. This all, if you see, they take only certain values. Say number of goals by the player. Now the number of goals in particular match, it can be 0, it can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 3. Okay, but it takes only certain values. Number of pregnancies. So it can be 0, it can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 3, it can be 4. Okay, maximum 5. Right? So this all are considered to be discrete variables, but because they are taking only certain values in a given range. So in other words, I would say when the range is small, okay, when the range of the data is small and there is much repetition in the data. So this will help you to differentiate. When the range is small and there is much repetition in your data, then it is a discrete variable. What about a continuous variable? It can assume any value in a specific interval of data or a specific range of data, like income of a person. So income of a person, say if I say on an average, it is between 0 to 2 lakhs. It can be any value. A person may earn 10,250.50 paisa. A person may earn 1,225 rupees, 0.75 paisa. So it is possible that he takes any value of the given interval, not certain values, any value of this interval, say between 0 to 2 lakhs. So it comes to a continuous variable. Yield of crop, height of the athlete, weight of the boxer, the skull circumference, the blood pressure, serum cholesterol, all this can take any value in a given interval. So it is called as a continuous variable. Am I clear? So again, I repeat. if it is just to classify in a given interval, if a variable takes only certain value, okay, and which is repeated many number of times, then it is said to be a discrete variable. While continuous means what? In a given interval, the variable can assume any possible value of that interval, and there is not much repetition in the data, then we say it is a continuous variable. I hope it is clear now. Great. We move further now. We are going with, say, okay, this is the summary chart that I've prepared for you because it is my style to always present the theoretical concept in the flow chart kind of thing or a diagrammatical kind of thing so that it becomes easy to remember. And we say that images speaks louder than words. So here the types of variables are there. So it is a quantitative and a qualitative data. In quantitative data, you can have, say, discrete variable. You can have a continuous variable for that. And discrete means number of children in a family, the number of strokes to hit the goal, TV sets owned, number of children or number of family members in a particular area. Continuous means amount of income of the tax paid, weight of the students, yearly rainfall, and so on. All this will be considered as a continuous variable. Most important thing, which is normally ignored, which is normally not looked at, is the level of measurement. How the data that we have are measured. Okay, and there are two type of things: categorical or a scale. In categorical, it will be nominal and ordinal. I'll take in detail, don't worry, because this is very important to decide the descriptive statistics and even the test. Okay, so the level of measurement can be categorical, that is nominal or ordinal. Scale, it can be interval or it can be the ratio. So these are the levels of measurement. Now I'll take each one of them one by one. So first is nominal level of measurement. Nominal level of measurement of your data. Okay, so when I say nominal level of measurement of the data, this means here it is simply classified. Observations or the data is simply classified and counted, like the number of home loans in different banks. So I may get a data that in State Bank there is 1 lakh home loans, in ICICI Bank that is 50,000 home loans in a particular month I'm talking. Then Bank of India is having certain, Bank of Maharashtra is having certain. So what we are doing it, we are just grouping it. We are just classifying the data into different categories. Okay, I will not say that SBI is better than ICICI Bank or Union Bank is less than Canara Bank or so. No, there is no gradation, there is no ranking, there is no order. It is simply classification. Okay, so there is no particular order in your label. Then it is said to be nominal level of measurement. Like gender, male, female. Okay, that is nominal. Or you can say which cold drink brands you like. You may say it is Thumbs Up, some may say it is 7 Up, some may say it is Coke, some may say it is Pepsi. So what we are doing it, we are just classifying the likeliness of a particular cold drink by the different individuals. Same way it can be the eye color also. It can be black-eyed person, it can be blue-eyed person, it can be gray-eyed person, and so on. So here again, we are just classifying it. We are not doing anything else. We just group it. So that is called a nominal level of measurement. Ordinal level, as the name suggests, ordinal means it is having an order, or it is having a rank. Okay. So here the data are classified. That is true. It is also classification, but in a particular order, in a particular level, in a particular rank. Then it is said to be ordinal level of measurement. Like suppose if you want to give a feedback of say the customer service that you got at a bank, then there will be option that it is not satisfied, okay, satisfied, neutral, highly satisfied. Okay, all these are what it is again ranked from lower to higher or higher to lower. That is up to you. That is up to the sponsor how they want to design that. You can also have a questionnaire in which they can ask that You whether you strongly agree or you agree or a neutral, disagree or strongly disagree. Right? You might have come across this all. So this is ordinal level of measurement. Same way, if you can order the chilies, it is hot. Okay, tikhi hai, mirchi tikhi hai. So it is hot. It is very hot, or it is hottest. Okay, it is very spicy, right? So here what we are doing it, we are just ranking the observations. We are just giving an order to the particular level of data. So if you have this kind of examples, like say stage of the disease, okay, so it can be stage 1. Suppose it is talking about the cancer, then it can be stage 1 cancer, stage 2 cancer, stage 3 cancer. So we can say the stage of the disease, the severity of the pain. I'm having moderate pain, I'm having low pain, I'm having very high pain, okay, very much pain that way. So that is again what we are doing it, we are giving a rank. Level of satisfaction, as I talked about before, whether you are highly satisfied, satisfied, neutral, not satisfied, highly not satisfied. So again, we are doing an ordered level of measurement. Next is comes interval. Now this is slightly difficult to understand. So look at it very carefully. Here, if I want to classify the data whether it is interval or not, while doing a analysis using any software, you don't have to worry about interval. I'll take that. You don't have to worry about interval. It will be directly scale only that will be considered. But though understanding the concept will be better. So interval means the difference of the values is important. Okay, it is meaningful, but the ratios of the values is not meaningful. I'll explain the reason. This is the chart for the size of the dress of the girls or of the ladies dress sizes. So size number 8, size number 10, size number 12, and so on. And we know that the size of the dress is determined by the bust, the waist, and the hips. So that means size 8 dress, if I say, that means bust should be 32, waist should be 24, hips should be 35. These are the actual data that I have considered. Okay. Now, if you look at this carefully, size 8 to 10, how much is the increase? Increase is 2 plus 2. Isn't it plus 2? So you see the bust size, it is also increase of 2. 35 to 37, 24 to 26, 32 to 34. If I take from 10 to 14, suppose, how much increase it is? 4. So here also from 34 to this will be 4, 26 to this will be 30, 37 to this will be again 4. So this means the difference is meaningful. Getting the idea? The difference is meaningful. But check about the ratio now. What is the size over here? 8. Suppose I take the double size. That is 16. Okay. The 16 I have taken a double. That means I have multiplied by 2. But the burst will not be multiplied by 2. Waist will not be multiplied by 2. Hips will not be multiplied by 2. Interesting. So this shows that difference is meaningful, but the ratio is not meaningful. So that is why it is called interval. Okay, interval means the difference. So the difference over here is meaningful, but the ratios are not meaningful. One more characteristics of interval data. Here, ratio or here 0, I'll say this way, 0 is not actual 0. I'll repeat. 0 is not actual 0. It is a paradox. 0 is not actual 0 means what? This means normally when I say 0, that means 0 income, 0 marks. That means absence of that characteristic. That student has not scored any marks in it. 0 income means that person is not having any income. His income is 0. Okay, so that is 0 is actual 0. But when I say 0 degree temperature, 0 degree Fahrenheit, 0 degree Celsius, does it mean there is no temperature over there? No. There is a temperature, but we have given a number to that temperature as 0. Getting the meaning? So 0 degree temperature does not means absence of temperature. There is a temperature, right? There is a temperature, but it does not have any absence of that characteristic. 0 is just a number assigned to that. Same way, one more example, if I take long back, probably 8 to 10 years back, Kareena Kapoor has started with 0 figure. Yeah, you can recollect it. It was a 0 figure. Now, in that case, can I say 0 figure means Kareena did not have any figure, did not have any bust, or did not have any waist, or did not have any hips? Right? No, it was not that. It was just a number, 0 figure was assigned. 0 figure was assigned to a particular size of the body. Getting it? So 0 does not mean here in the interval level data, when 0 does not mean actual 0, then it is an interval level of data. Ratio level. Now here again you can understand from the wordings itself, ratio. So now when difference is also meaningful, okay, when difference is also meaningful and ratio is also meaningful, then we go with the ratio level of data. Like height, weight, income, and all. So this is the highest level of measurement. Okay, this is the highest level of measurement because it incorporates everything, every level of data. So depending on what you are measuring, depending on the measurement also, or which level of measurement you're doing it, the whole statistics is based on that. So here we can say 0 is actual 0. I've explained that before. The temperature is different. That is the interval level. But when I say marks, when I say income, okay, that means 0 is actual 0 or an absence of that character. Okay, to sum up, as I said, I'll be giving you a flow chart also so that it becomes easy to remember. The lowest level of measurement is nominal. So it is generally understood in the stepwise. It is this way. So the lowest level is nominal level of measurement. Then it is ordinal level of measurement. Then it is interval level of measurement. And then it is a ratio level of measurement. So lowest is nominal, where it is simply categorical. Okay, it is simply grouped. Ordinal means it has been ordered or ranked or scaled. Interval means difference between this is meaningful but no true 0. And here difference is also meaningful, ratio is also meaningful, and 0 means actual 0. Okay, so that way there are 4 different levels of measurement. Have I made things clear? Sure. But while doing your analysis, so don't worry about the complications. I'll make things simple for you. While doing your analysis, you'll be having either nominal data or a ordinal data, and these two are combined and called as a scale data. Scale. Okay. If you use SPSS, if you use R or any other softwares for your data analysis, you'll be finding these 3: nominal, ordinal, or it is scale level of measurement. So this two has been clubbed. These two are clubbed. So now don't worry about how to identify 0 is actual 0 or not. It's okay. But I thought that clarity will be important. If you have that concept node that 0 is actual 0 and 0 is not actual 0, that will help you to go deeper into understanding of the data. Fine. The next and the important question, which I'm sure you all might be having it right now. Okay, what is that? Why we have to know the level of measurement? Why it is important to know the level of measurement? क्या फर्क पड़ेगा? What is an advantage of understanding or knowing the level of measurement? There are actually the whole thing is whole analysis is based on this. So the first, the level of measurement dictates the calculations that can be done on the data, or in other words, which descriptive statistics to be used. I'll go in detail about later on, but which descriptive statistics to be used, which diagrams or graphs should be used, that is based on the level of measurement. Okay, whether to use mean, median, or mode, whether to use range, quartile deviation, or standard deviation, whether to use a box chart or a scatter plot or a bar diagram or a pie diagram, we'll have to understand the level of measurement. And the second, to determine the statistical test. Which test to use? Whether it is a t-test, in t-test also which test to use, whether it is f-test, whether it is chi-square test, which test to use. That is also based on the level of measurement. It is also based on the purpose also, okay. But again, after knowing the purpose, the level of measurement will help you to decide which test to use. Okay, so before I go with further that which descriptive statistics or which graph should be used, let me take a brief idea about or give you the brief idea about what are different descriptive statistics. So statistically, when I say that the data needs to be described or I have to use a descriptive statistics, that means I'm talking about central tendency. Okay, I'm talking about variations. And this you have heard, mean, median, mode. Okay, these all are central tendency. There are more positional averages or more positional characteristics that can be done. That is quartiles, percentiles and all. I'm not going in detail right now. Same way for variations, you have a range, you have interquartile range, you have standard deviation, you have variance and all. So they all are called descriptive statistics. Why the word descriptive? Because actually this will describe the data. This will describe the data. You know that uh, when a blood report comes or when any medical report comes, then your cholesterol level might be, okay, you have a particular cholesterol level. And then the lab, the printout that you get from the lab, they will also give you the range. Okay, this is the minimum range, there is a maximum range. On an average for a, if you refer to the Google and all, if you ask your doctor, then they will say you that okay, at the age of particular age of say 35 or 40, average cholesterol level can be this much, say X. Okay, and then they will also say okay, plus minus certain amount. Okay, so that means if I say about the diabetes, then diabetes can be somewhere around 120 plus minus 10 depending on the age. So that is how we describe the data. That is called the descriptive statistics. So whether to use mean, whether to use median, whether to use mode, whether to use range or interquartile range or a standard deviation, that all depends on the data. That all depends on the level of measurement of data. So here it comes, why it is needed to understand the level of measurements of data. So if your data is say categorical, okay, if your data is say categorical like here, now you know what is categorical. Okay, let me explain this again. We know there are two main level of measurement. One is scale and the other is categorical. In categorical, again, there are two: nominal and ordinal. Okay, now you can recollect it. Actually, in scale also there are two: interval and ratio. But now we don't need to classify further. We'll take it as a scale only. As I said, all the softwares and all the analysis now, we don't need to bifurcate it further. So if your data is categorical, you know categorical means what? Male, female. Okay, that will be nominal, male, female, or the preferences or the ranking that you have done it, that is ordinal. So if your data is categorical, particularly say nominal, then we cannot use mean. We cannot use median for averages. We have to go for mode only. What was happening up till now, that the basic concept was whenever an average is asked, we find out mean. Wasn't it? We were using always mean. Average is asked, calculate mean. Dispersion is asked, calculate standard deviation. No, that is not true. You are making a mistake in describing your data correctly. So understand now that when your data is nominal, okay, nominal means what? It is simply categorized, like, or it is simply grouped, like gender, the birthplace, the state of birth, all different kind of things where you're simply classifying it. Then in that case, average will be used, which will be mode, and no measure of dispersion can be used. No measure of dispersion. You cannot use range, you cannot use quartile deviation, you cannot use standard deviation. That data cannot be having any measure of dispersion. Clear? So for your nominal data, we'll be only using mode. For your ordinal data, that means rank data or a scale data, the base measure of average will be median and not mean. That means if you have ranked your data, if you're given a preference like, or we can say scaling, like you have to rate between the scale of 1 to 5. So it can be 1 means the lowest and 5 means the highest. Then you can give a scaling of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can get an answer. You cannot take a mean for that. We will have to go for median for it. So for ordinal data, it will be median, and the dispersion, it will be interquartile range, Q3 minus Q1. Okay, so that is an interquartile range should be used. On the other hand, if it is a scale data, so now simply understand which is not categorical will be called as a scale data. Height, weight, cholesterol level, diabetes level, okay, blood pressure, number of WBC counts, income, all we will call it as a scale data. So for a scale data, if the data is normally distributed, I hope you know this, normally distributed means the data follows a normal distribution, this kind of thing. So if the data is normally distributed, then only you can go for mean and standard deviation. If the data is skewed, okay, skewed means the data can be of this type. Elongated, right tail is elongated. So this is positively skewed. Or the data can be left-sided, that is a negatively skewed. So if your data is skewed, then again you have to go for median or interquartile range. You can see now, in every case, up till now, we all were using mean only and we were happy. Wasn't it? We were happy with mean, but now you can see mean can be used only if your data is scale and it is normally distributed. So that is why when you practically use your data analysis, the first thing you check in your data is whether the data follows a normal distribution or not. Whether it is following a normal distribution. If yes, then we can use for mean or we can use for a standard deviation. If not, we have to use median or interquartile range. Now the question comes how to check the normality. That is altogether a different topic. Different softwares, whether it is R or SPSS or Excel, there are measures. Shapiro-Wilk test. You can check with histogram also. We can check with frequency polygon also. Okay, we can check with box plots also whether the data is normally distributed or not. So there are different ways to check the normality. But right now, for the scope of this particular session, I'm not including that. Okay, so what you have to remember right now, if the data is normally distributed, okay, let me summarize the whole thing. First, check whether your data is categorical or scale. If it is categorical, then check whether it is nominal or ordinal. If your data is nominal, like gender, okay, like eye color, that kind of data you have, then go for mode as a central tendency, and no dispersion is possible over there. If your data is ordinal, like it is given the satisfaction level or 5-point scale, Likert scale, or 10-point Likert scale, okay, if that kind of data you have it, if that kind of response you are getting it, then that is called an ordinal one and go for a median or interquartile. So clear with the categorical part? Okay, now if your data is not categorical, that means scale, like height, weight, income, blood pressure, cholesterol level, diabetes, okay, like number of deaths due to COVID, number of patients recovering from COVID, any such kind of data you have it, then we will say first check whether that is normally distributed or not. Normal distribution is very important distribution in any analysis. You will come across that further also in subsequent sessions. That if your data is normally distributed, then only you can go for mean as a descriptive statistics or a summary statistic, or for a dispersion you have to go for a standard deviation. And if your data is, even your data is scale but it is not normally distributed, then you have to go for a median or an interquartile range. So this particular chart will be very, very important in deciding your summary statistics or your descriptive statistics. Okay, next is also important, graphs. For the softwares, diagrams and graphs both are same. Okay, they will be called as diagrams or graphs only. So don't worry about technically what is diagram and what is graph. It's okay for us. What is important? This is a pie chart. Okay, this is a pie chart. This is a bar chart. And to be very precise, this is multiple bar chart, because there is bar 1, bar 2, bar 3 representing a particular year. Therefore, again for 2001 and 2, again there are 3 bar chart. So this is a multiple bar chart. Same way you can have a stacked bar chart, or you can say divided bar chart. Like the same data, you can have the graph has only 1 bar, but it is divided into 3 parts. Okay, it can be the chest pain over here, it can be the abdominal pain with a different design, and it can be blank, or it can be the square design, again so different design for the other symptoms. Here there is chest pain, means blue color, abdominal pain means green color, and blue means other symptoms, light blue means. So this is multiple bar chart you can use it, or you can also use a stacked bar chart or a divided bar chart. This is just for the understanding. Softwares will give you all these charts, but which chart to use when, for that I'm explaining actually how many type of diagrams or charts you have. So the first is pie, second is bar chart, this is histogram. Okay, this is histogram. So what is the difference between bar chart and histogram? The difference is that in a bar chart, okay, when you talk about a bar chart, then bar chart means will be not necessarily continuous. You can have a simple, this type of figures, that the number of individuals preferring thumbs up, number of individuals preferring Coke, number of individuals preferring Pepsi, and so on. So that will be the bar chart. Histogram will be continuous. You can see 0 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and so on. The income of a person, right? So income of a person can be 0 to 5,000, 5,000 to 10,000, and so on. We can classify. So this is a histogram. In short, this is a histogram. This is scatter plot. Okay, this is a scatter diagram or a scatter plot. On x-axis there will be one variable, on y-axis there will be some variable, and we will plot the data pairwise. So this is BMI and this is percentage fat. Okay, percentage fat in your body. So here you will have a person 1, you have a BMI and you have a percentage fat. Second person, you have a BMI, you have a percentage fat. And you are plotting this on a graph which will be called as a scatter plot. You have a box plot, which is also called box whisker plot. Box whisker plot. I hope you might have come across this. If not, let me explain. Why it is called a box whisker plot? Because this is a box. Okay, and this is whisker. Whisker matlab mooch hai. Okay, whisker matlab mooch hai. So this is a whisker. What actually this represents? This is a very wonderful graph. This graph actually, one graph shows everything. It shows median, it shows quartiles, it shows range of the data, it shows the outlier, okay, it shows the central value also. So that is why it is actually called a 5 summary plot. 5 summary plot. It is minimum, maximum, Q1, median, and Q3. These are the 5 summary. So it is also called a 5 summary plot. Okay. So what is this? Now I'll explain. In your data, it will show you this plot. It will give you the number. The yellow line is nothing else, but it will show you the median. The lower part of the box is nothing else but your Q1. Upper part of the box is nothing else but Q3. This difference or this range, we can say, is called the interquartile range. Q3 minus Q1, interquartile range. This value is the lowest value, minimum value we can say. It is calculated. How it is calculated? I'm going a little bit in technical. Q1 minus 1.5 interquartile range. And this is Q3. So this from upper range. So this is 1.5 interquartile range. So that is why it is called Q3 plus this. And this is also 1.5 interquartile range. So this is Q1 minus this, because we are going on the left hand side. So it is Q1 minus, here it is Q3 plus. If any point value plot, if any point lies outside the minimum value, maybe somewhere here, maybe somewhere here, maybe somewhere here, they are called the outliers. There is again altogether a different theory for outlier analysis, that whether to ignore that outliers or you have to go deep, why you are getting a specific value, because outliers will affect your descriptive statistic. It will change the whole descriptive statistic. So once you plot this box whisker, then the next part will be to identify that why we are getting this outlier. You have to go deep into it. Whether it is a printing mirror, that means whether the data entry is done wrongly, that means it is an error, or actually that is a measured value. All that can be understood using box whisker plot. Okay, software will give you at one click, so don't worry about that. I'm just showing you that this is box whisker plot. Now the important part is which graph to use at which level of measurement. You had a question why we are understanding the level of measurement. So one we have seen, it is because that will help you to decide the summary statistics, whether to use mean, median, mode, whether to use range, quartile range, or standard deviation. Same way, which graph to draw, that is also decided by level of measurement. What is happening up till now? Whichever diagrams or graphs was colorful, okay, then we were saying that okay, this is a better one. या फिर ऐसा भी होता था कि many times you might be thinking about कि चलो अभी बहुत बार पाई चार्ट हो गया, अब बार चार्ट यूज करते हैं, right? Normally it was the case, but it is wrong. I'll explain. If your data is say categorical means what? Nominal or ordinal. If your data, you are having only one, you want to plot only one variable. If your data is having only one variable to plot, then you have to go for a pie or a bar chart. Pie chart or a bar chart will be used if your data is one variable only that you want to plot is categorical. While if you have only one variable to plot and if it is a scale, you have to go for a histogram. See now how important it becomes. So histogram is drawn only if your data is or your variable is scale variable. If it is a categorical, then we have to go for a pie or a bar chart. Am I making sense? Yeah, making things clear? Good. Same way, if one of your variable is scale, okay, one of your variable is scale. So now I am talking about two variables together. You want to plot two variables. So this is only if you want to plot one variable. This all, if you want to plot one variable. But if you want to plot two variables together, then what to do? Then in that case, options are that your first variable is scale. Okay, your first variable is scale and the second variable is also scale. That means you want to plot say age and cholesterol level. You want to plot BMI and you want to plot the age. Okay, that means both the variables that you are dealing are scale, then you have to go with a scatter plot. Then only you can go for a scatter plot. If one of your variable is categorical and the other variable is scale, like one is your gender, and say here it is diabetic level or the cholesterol level. So this is scale and this is categorical. Then you have to go with the box plot chart. In short, it is called box plot. Detail, it is box whisker plot. It is both are same. So don't worry. Okay. So you have to use this one. But if both are categorical, that means here it is gender. Okay. And here it is given the Likert scale of 1 to 5. Then you have to go with a multiple or a stacked bar chart. Multiple or stacked bar chart. See how the things are changing now. So the purpose of having this session was to clarify the basics of statistics which you'll be using in life science or social science or anywhere. There are many, I would say, wrong presumptions that are prevalent about statistics, about using of statistics. So clarify karna, it was very necessary. Because I've seen many a times it is said कि आपकी थीसिस में आपके रिसर्च पेपर में टी टेस्ट होना चाहिए. एक बार चार्ट ड्रॉ करो, एक मीन मीडियन फाइंड कर दो, that is enough. So no, it is not that way. First, you have to understand the purpose, the data, and then you have to decide which descriptive or a summary statistics to use, or which graph to use, or which testing of hypothesis test that you should use it. Okay, clear? Fine. I'll go further now. So now we'll talk about the parametric test in, or parametric test we'll be talking about in statistics. Okay, how it will be useful for you. Parametric test. Okay. Okay, what are parametric tests? There are two different type of testing of hypothesis. One is parametric and the other is non-parametric. I'll take little bit of that in detail later on. But there are two different things, parametric and non-parametric. When to use parametric, when to use non-parametric, I will help you to simplify it for you. So don't worry. So basically statistics or data analysis can be of two types, descriptive and inferential. So as the word suggests, descriptive means you're only describing your data. You're only summarizing your data, like using mean, median, mode, using dispersion, range, quartile deviation, mean deviation, or standard deviation, using diagrams and graphs, using tables. So that all will be coming as a descriptive. So it is not necessary that in all the paper, all your research paper, or all your analysis, or all your experiment, you need both. No, it is not necessary. Depending on the purpose, you have to decide which analysis you have to go for. So this is for descriptive, where you summarize the data. And the second is inferential. This is the whole branch of statistics, inferential statistics. So as the word suggests, inferential means to infer. So from this population, we select a sample, we do this analysis on the sample, and then we infer for the whole population. That is called inferential statistic. I'll take very relevant example right now. Say about the COVID vaccine. Okay, you all know about that there are many countries, many companies who are uh, going for the developing the COVID vaccine. You know better this than me that for if the company comes up with a new drug or a new vaccine, what is to be done first? There are trials that they have to go for. Stage 1 trials, stage 2 trials. They are called clinical trials, right? And in clinical trials, first what they do is after they find out a new drug, then it is tested on animals, rodents generally. Maybe it is rats, maybe it is mice, or maybe it is pigs or all. They are tested on animals. So according to the international laws, these numbers are also restricted. You cannot test on thousands and lakhs of animals. There is only certain numbers that are allowed for every company. Suppose that is 50. On 50 rats, the vaccine is tested. Okay. Now we are not checking on the whole amount or total number of rats. We are doing only on 50. And we get a conclusion that, okay, the vaccine is successful on this 50 rats. Then what is the next stage? It is done on human volunteers. And say the numbers are again, because of the restriction, the number is 30 or say 20. So on 20 human volunteers, the drug or the new vaccine is tested. And again, we say that, okay, it was successful on this humans. Now what? Now the role of a statistician comes. Now the role of the life science experts comes. What they do is using statistics, because this 20 humans, they were only the sample. Okay. Based on the success of the sample, we want to conclude whether this will be successful on all humans. That means the population. So we have done our experiment on the sample of humans only, that is 20. But we want to conclude that, yeah, it will be successful on all humans also. In that case, we need inferential statistics. Infer. So infer for the population based on the sample experiment, based on the sample data analysis, that is called inferential statistics. So this I have discussed that, okay, diagrams, graphs and all, they are called the inferential, they are called descriptive, and making the inference about the population from the sample, they are called inferential statistics. Okay. In inferential statistics, there are two: estimation of parameters, and the second is testing of hypothesis. Estimation of parameter or the testing of hypothesis. I'll explain what are parameters, what is testing of hypothesis, but there are two different techniques that is used in inferential statistics. Now, what is parameter now? Statistically, parameter means the calculations which is done on the population data. Okay, they are called the parameters. And which is done on the sample data, it is called statistic. The easy way to remember, it is P for population, P for parameter. I think this you might have, this kind of technique you might have used in schools, but we can use it over here also. So population is P and parameter is P. Same way, sample is S and statistic is also S. So whatever you do on population, they are called parameter. Whatever calculations you do on the sample, they are called the statistic. Okay. We'll check. Mean. Okay. When I say mean, which symbol first comes into your mind? Which symbol comes? I know it will be X bar only. Isn't it? It was X bar, but actually it is X bar is the sample mean. Okay, it is a sample mean, so it is a statistic. If you do it for the whole population, it will be mu. This is the mu for the whole population. That is called a parameter. ठीक है, समझ में आ रहा है? Getting it? So whenever you do with the sample, it is called a statistic. And this X bar is for the sample and mu is for the whole population. Same way, standard deviation. What comes to the mind? S. Again, this is for statistic. That is the sample. And if you do it for the population, that is sigma. By the way, don't get confused. This is also sigma. But it is used for summation. This is a capital sigma. This is small sigma. Like we have in English, this is small a, this is capital A. In Greek also, Greek alphabets also, there are small and capital. So that was sigma. Proportion, small p and capital P. Correlation coefficient, it is small r, and rho. This is rho, symbol for population correlation. Okay, so this is how parameter and the statistic notations are used. Mean, it is x bar. For the population mean, it is mu. So we will calculate for x bar and we'll conclude it for the mu. That is what we do in statistical inference. That is what we do in testing of hypothesis. We calculate S, we try to infer for sigma. We calculate small p, we try to infer for capital P. We do it for small r and we infer for population correlation coefficient, that is rho. Estimation, there are two types of estimation, point estimation and interval estimation. Point means we give only one value for it. Okay, that is also called a point estimation. And generally point estimation is not used, because if I ask you that what should be the diabetic level of an individual whose age is 45, what should be the ideal diabetic level? Then if you say it is 120 is the ideal level, then that is a point estimation. But if you say it should be between 120 to 140, then it is called an interval estimation. So when you give a range, that is called an interval estimate. When you give a single value, that is called a point estimation. But generally for this you need to be very, very precise. So practically this is not used. It is always the interval estimation that is used. Getting it? So there are two types of estimation, point estimation, which gives a single value, and the other one is interval estimation, which gives you the range of value. Okay? This is just for understanding. This is a point estimation, only one value is given. And here the range of value is given, lower limit and upper limit kind of thing. So that is called an interval estimation. And that is why just generally in medical reports and all, you will find out a range. They will not give you that the ideal cholesterol level is 123 or 114 or one diabetic level is 114. They will give you a range only, because it is more giving you confidence for it. And that is why in many books, if you find, it is also called as a confidence interval, because it is giving you confidence. When you have an interval, it gives you more confidence. When you have a single value, then there is less chance of being precise. The confidence level is low in that. Okay, now basics about statistical hypothesis. So in next 15-20 minutes, I'll talk about what is null hypothesis, what is alternative, which states to use when and all. So hypothesis, in simple words, I would say hypothesis is nothing else but an assumption. It is just an assumption. Whatever I have in my mind about that particular statement, that is called an assumption, that is called a hypothesis. That means I have that recovery rate of COVID-19 patient in Gujarat is say 80%. That is my assumption. I don't know exact figures, but that is my assumption. Or my assumption may be that an average annual income of Indian farmer is say 70 or 80,000. So that is my assumption. That is called statistical hypothesis. It may be between the two population also. I may say that the recovery rate of COVID-19 is better in Goa compared to that of Maharashtra. Okay, that is also an assumption. I may say that the death rate in India due to COVID is much less than that of US. That may be an assumption. I want to check after this. So assumption is an assumption about a particular statement which you want to check, which you want to perform an experiment based on that. Okay, so that is called an hypothesis. There are two types of hypothesis, null and alternative. So null hypothesis is a hypothesis about a specific value of the parameter. Now I'm going a little bit technical. So null hypothesis, if a population parameter assumes a specific value, then it is called a simple hypothesis. Like as I said, I assume that 80% is the recovery rate. Proportion of recovery is 0.8, right? Or I assume that recovery rate of India, average recovery rate of India is better than the average recovery rate of US. Okay, So that can be my assumption. But when I talk about null hypothesis, in null hypothesis, there can be two: simple or composite. In many books, you'll be finding out composite or hypothesis. Generally, in foreign books, they go for composite hypothesis. That means mu greater than or equal to 150. So here you can see it is equal to and greater than both. In generally Indian books and generally when we teach, we go for equal to because it becomes easy for understanding. Conceptually, both will be same. Conclusion will be same for both. But for our understanding, simple hypothesis will be better. That is mu equal to 150, 10% diabetic patients. So P equal to this. So here it is less than or greater than. So whenever your null hypothesis takes only one specific value, then it is called a simple hypothesis, simple null hypothesis. When it takes a range of value like greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, then it is called a composite. Mind well, null hypothesis should have an equal to sign, either purely equal to or greater than or equal to. That means in my null hypothesis, I cannot say mu greater than 150. Then it is wrong. It should be having an equal to sign. This is a null hypothesis. What is alternative? Complementary to the null hypothesis. Complementary to the null hypothesis is called an alternative hypothesis. Say for example, I say 10% is the death rate of COVID-19 in Maharashtra. 10% is the death rate of COVID-19 due to COVID-19 in Maharashtra state. In how many ways you can oppose my statement? In how many ways you can do that? So some of you may say, no, it is more than 10%. That means again you are against my statement because I'm saying 10%. You are saying no, it is more than 10%. Some of you may say no, it is less than 10%. So again you are against my statement because I said 10. You are saying no, less than 10. Some smarter lot may say no, it is not 10%. That's it, not 10%. Means even if it is more than 10%, I am wrong. Even if it is less than 10%, then also it is wrong. So that means complementary can be three types: not equal to, greater than, or less than. When I say not equal to 10%, that means you have an option of right hand side also. You have an option of left hand side also. This is 10%. When I say not equal to 10%, it means this side also, and you can go this side also. So this is called two-tailed alternative hypothesis. Two-tailed. It goes over here also. It goes over here. One-tailed. That means it can be only on right hand side. It is right tail. So only on this side. So this is right-sided one tail. Or it can be left-sided also. So this side also. So this is left-sided one tail alternative hypothesis. So it seems to be very simple, but to understand null and alternative hypothesis, you have to understand the problem better. The first step is to understand your problem statement, to understand the data, the level of measurement, and then you have to decide null and alternative hypothesis. For your simplification, you only say it is not equal to, that is two tail, or it is greater than or less than, that is one tail. So the procedure to decide to accept or reject the null hypothesis is called testing of hypothesis. There can be two type of error. This you might have studied in biostatistics, type 1 and type 2 error. What is type 1 error? Type 1 error is probability of rejecting the null hypothesis when it was true. Your assumption was true, but because of the procedure, it got rejected. Because of the procedure, it got rejected. That probability is called type 1 error, denoted by alpha. What is type 2 error? Your assumption was wrong, but because of the procedure, it got accepted. Because of the procedure, it got accepted. That probability is called type 2 error. Okay, so type 1 and type 2 are the errors that you come across while testing your hypothesis. Even in your uh, clinical trials, even in your medical reports, that can be type 1 and type 2 error. So to summarize this, if your hypothesis is true and you accept it, then there is no error. Okay, if your hypothesis was false and you reject it, again there is no error. But the problem lies when there is a cross connection. When your hypothesis was true and you rejected it, right? सही था पर आपने reject किया. The hypothesis was true, but you still rejected it, so it is called a type 1 error. And वो false था, but due to some reason you accepted it, then it is called a type 2 error. समझ में आ रहा है type 1 and type 2 error? Okay, good. Yeah, this is just to make a little bit fun of it. A doctor, based on the medical report that he got, okay, based on the medical report he got, he is saying to a male old patient that you are pregnant because of the medical report. Okay, then it is called a type 1 error. And a doctor to a lady who is seen that she is pregnant, but because of the medical report, she is saying you are not pregnant. So that is type 2 error. Okay, so type 1, type 2 error, doctor saying to a male patient. So this is just to make a fun of it, that you are pregnant or you're not pregnant and so on. So this is a type 1 and type 2 error. Level of significance is generally the risk that the experiment has, and that is a predetermined value. It is decided before the experiment starts, before the hypothesis testing starts, and generally it is nothing else but the probability of type 1 error. The probability of type 1 error, आपको याद है, probability of type 1 error is denoted by alpha, and that is also called a level of significance. So what does it mean? Achha, generally commonly used is 1% or 5% or 10%. What it says that if I talk about 5%, what it says that 100 times if I do this testing of hypothesis procedure, 5 times I may conclude wrongly. 5 times I may go wrong. So that is the level of significance. In terms of medical report, 100 times the testing is done. 5 times I may conclude wrong in my medical report. It may happen. 5 times I may conclude wrong. So that is called the level of significance. And generally, if you want to reduce the level of significance, this you want to reduce it, you have to increase the sample size. And increasing the sample size means increasing the cost. So generally, we have to balance out. We have to balance between the cost and you have to balance between the alpha. Because if you increase this, okay, if you decrease this rather, then the cost will increase. And if you want to increase this, the cost will decrease. But you have to balance out, because that is ultimately very important, which value to take. Generally, it is in the market, 5% is prevalent. Critical region, same way. The region where the hypothesis is accepted or rejected is called the critical region. Here you can see if it is 5% and it is a two-tailed test, then this is also 5% means divided by 2. So 0.025 over here, 0.025 over here. So this is the critical region. Here also it is a critical region. But if it is a one-tail test, then whole 5% will be on one side. So this becomes a critical region and this becomes the acceptance region. Here this is the acceptance region. So this is all technical, statistical, but now the softwares for you will do wonders. You don't have to worry about acceptance or rejection region, because p-value comes to your rescue. For all non-statisticians, p-value becomes very important, which I'll take at the end of the session. So if you don't understand critical region, don't worry about it. Power of the test is the power of rejecting the null hypothesis. It is 1 minus alpha. It's okay. I'm not going with that. So there are certain steps. Whenever you go for a testing of hypothesis, there are certain steps that you have to follow. First is step 1, null hypothesis. Step 2, alternative hypothesis. Step 3, you have to check the assumptions like normality assumptions, equal variance assumptions. That will be taken care in the other session while hypothesis testing is done using Excel. That will be the subsequent sessions that you will come across. Determining the test and the p-value, which again software will give you directly, and conclusion. If your p-value is less than or equal to alpha, we reject the null hypothesis. If p is greater than alpha, then we fail to reject, means we'll accept the null hypothesis. These are the 5 steps you have to follow. I would say that in any hypothesis testing, follow the 5 steps. Null, alternative, assumption checking, p-value, or the test statistic, conclusion. 5 steps, hypothesis testing is done. And these are the different tests that will be there. Single mean test, 2 mean test, single proportion, 2 proportion, single standard deviation, 2 standard deviation, means for more than 2 samples, standard deviation for more than 2 proportions. What if it is not having a normal distribution? Test for correlation, test for regression. So there are, I have just taken few only. So there are many different tests that you can do in hypothesis test. But I'll summarize the important one. And this becomes a very important decision tree. Okay, it becomes very important. So first of all, to decide which test to use, first thing is to check what you want to do. Whether you want to check the means or you are checking the proportion. What do you want to do? I want to check, if I want to check that 10% of the patients in Gujarat are suffering from COVID. Okay, or are having a deaths, 10% or say 3%. We have the figures, rough figures. So if I want to check are or is in Gujarat the death rate 3% due to COVID, I want to check that. That means I want to check the proportion. I want to check that the average income of individuals staying in Gujarat or in India, suppose it is say 15,000 rupees. Average 15,000 rupees. That means I want to check the mean. Or I want to check the average cholesterol level. Okay, average cholesterol level of Indians is say 115. That means again I have to go for mean. So first step is to decide whether you are going for mean or you are going for proportion. If you are going for proportion, then check whether it is a single sample or 2 samples. If it is a single sample, then you have to go for a Z test using single proportion. And if it is for the 2, then you have to go for a Z test for 2 proportions. So that becomes very easy. If you are going for proportion, तो Z test तो करना ही है. If you are going for a proportion, then go for a Z test for single and Z test for 2 proportions. But generally, if I go a little bit deep, proportion will be used if your sample size is greater than 30. अगर 30 से कम है तो ideally proportion test use नहीं करना चाहिए. You have to go for a non-parametric test. Okay. Now, if you are going for mean, the other half, you are going for a mean. Then again ask the question whether it is single sample or a 2 sample. If it is a single sample, then ask the question, is population standard deviation known? मतलब sigma पता है आपको? Is sigma known? Which generally it is not known. If it is known, then go for Z test. If it is not known, go for a T test. Generally, population standard deviation पता नहीं होता है हमें. We are not knowing it. And so, we use T test. That is why, if you look at it, every software will give you T, but not Z. आप SPSS use करो या कोई भी MATLAB use करो, वहाँ पे T test ही होता है. there is always a t-test. The reason is because generally the population standard deviations is not known. This is not known. And so we have to go for a t-test. And for a larger sample, again, I'll clarify this. For a larger sample, आप t-test करो या z-test करो, answer same आने वाला. And so we never use z-test. We go for a t-test in case of a mean. So for single mean, we'll go for a t-test. Same way, if there are two samples, then ask the question whether they are dependent samples or whether they are independent samples. If they are independent samples, again ask the question, is the population standard deviation known? अगर है तो z test, अगर नहीं है तो t test. Okay? So t test कब यूज करेंगे? जब सिग्मा पता नहीं हो, और जनरली पता होता भी नहीं है. We don't know sigma. So again I repeat, for a single sample, go for single sample t test. For two samples, check whether they are independent or dependent. If they are independent, go for t-test independent samples. If they are dependent मतलब pair में data दिया हो, pair में. Before giving certain medicine, after giving certain medicine. The pressure, blood pressure before medicine, blood pressure after medicine. So same patient है, same person है, before after जैसी situation हो, that is called a dependent sample. Then you have to go for a paired t-test. This is a paired t-test. Okay. So this becomes very simple. Now I repeat the whole flow chart. The purpose of your problem is to test the proportion. Then go for z-test for single proportion. If it is a single sample, two proportion. If it is a two sample. If it is for a mean, then if it is for a single, go for a t-test. अगर सिग्मा पता हो तो z-test में जाना है. Generally पता नहीं होता. If it is for a two sample mean, अगर वो dependent है तो pair t-test, अगर independent है तो t-test, independent samples. और अगर सिग्मा पता है तो आपको z-test में जाना है. Okay? So this flowchart will help you to decide which test to use when. अच्छा, एक और चार्ट दे देता हूँ जिसमें मैंने ज्यादा कवर किया है. If your data is scale, now coming to this part, if your data is scale, आपको बताया था ना मैंने कि the level of measurement will be very important to decide. If your data is scale and it is following a normal distribution, और अगर आपको मीन चेक करना है तो go for a one sample t-test. अगर दो samples हो तो two sample t-test. और अगर दो से ज्यादा samples हो तो go for ANOVA. Go for ANOVA. ठीक है? So this is very important. कि अगर आपका scale variable है, if you have a scale variable and you are checking the mean, then one sample t-test, two sample t-test or ANOVA. And if it is not normal, ये scale है पर वो normal नहीं है, then you have to go for a non-parametric test. One sample t-test की जगह Wilcoxon t-test, two sample t-test की जगह Mann-Whitney u-test, और ANOVA की जगह आपको Kruskal-Wallis test करना है. So this is a non-parametric test if you want to check for a scale data. For a scale data, if you want to check for a standard deviation, तो अगर single sample है तो chi-square test, two sample test है तो F test, दो से ज़्यादा sample हो तो Bartlett's test और a Levin test you can use it. Clear? If you want to check for the proportion, go for a one sample proportion, two sample proportion. और अगर two से ज़्यादा sample हो तो binomial analysis of means करना. That is more than one, more than two samples. So this chart will actually summarize everything. कब कौन सा test use करना है, you'll get an exact idea about it. Getting it? Okay. So I repeat again. If you are having a scale, then there are two options: normal and not normal. If it is normal, then go for mean, one sample t-test, two sample t-test, and ANOVA. If it is not normal, go for median, that is Wilcoxon test, Mann-Whitney u-test, or Kruskal-Wallis test. And they are called non-parametric tests. This is a parametric. If it is a standard deviation, scale following a normal. If it is standard deviation, go for chi-square, F, and Bartlett or a Levin test. If you want to check the proportion, then go for one proportion, two proportion, or binomial analysis of area. तो ये टेबल आपको बहुत काम में आएगा. This will be very very useful for you. Lastly, then I will end. That is a p-value. What is a p-value? As I said, now every software that will be going for, whether it is a Excel or a SPSS or R, p-value, it is a value for a non-statisticians to infer. क्योंकि statistics में अगर है तो आपको t टेस्ट को कर रहे हो तो t फिर टेबल वैल्यू के साथ कंपेयर करो, z को टेबल वैल्यू के साथ कंपेयर करो, f को टेबल वैल्यू के साथ कंपेयर करो. It becomes very complex. So the software is now giving you p-value और आपके लिए बहुत सिंपल है. Smaller and smaller p-value means stronger and stronger evidence against h0. मतलब जितना कम वैल्यू p का होगा आप h0 को ज्यादा रिजेक्ट करोगे. You will reject the null hypothesis. So generally it is said if your alpha is 0.05, then reject null hypothesis when p is less than or equal to 0.05, except when p is greater than 0.05. So remember this, in general, if p is less than or equal to alpha, reject null hypothesis. And if it is greater than alpha, in simple terms, accept or will fail to reject the null hypothesis. और जनरली अल्फा 5% होता है, इसलिए यहाँ पे ये लिया. So P will be helpful in deciding whether to accept or whether to reject the hypothesis. Okay, so with this we come to an end of the basic idea, basic fundamentals about whether to understand the data, level of measurements, why level of measurement is important. Now it is clear that to decide the summary or a descriptive statistics, to decide the graphs, how you can present your data graphically, or thirdly to decide the different type of test. I've also explained which test to use when. To summarize it, if your data is scale, check the normality and then decide the test. If your data is not scale, if it is a categorical, then go for a different type of test. So we'll stop over here. I think this session will give you a very good idea about different type of data, different type of level of measurement, different type of test, and when to use which type of test. Thank you and hope this things makes easy for you.